Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So we've had a little paper up here that was called Lessons from the Light, but I kind of went into more depth with it, and I thought you guys might enjoy that because, sure, we have the paper here and it's nice to read, but sometimes it's nice to have it, spoken out and some more filling out of some of the material on there. So, I hope you're all enjoying another blessed Sabbath, another time of fellowship, unity, and peace. Our start of the lesson begins in Genesis 1 verse 3. Now, I like using the TLV version, but a lot of versions of the Bibles, they usually say the word let, to which we know that God is not allowing light to be there, but He's speaking it into being. Because God doesn't allow light, He makes the light.
He didn't have to ask Satan for permission to cause light to be there.
I'm going to repeat that just so then they can hear that. He didn't have to allow Satan to allow light to be there.
He didn't have to ask.
Oh, he didn't have to ask.
He didn't have to beg him. He didn't have to plead with him. He declared it.
He declared it, yes. So I'm going to read the verse, and I'll put the truth back into it again. And the verse goes, "Then God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light. And God saw that the light was good. So God distinguished the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness He called night. And so there was evening, and there was morning one day." Of course, there's a little bit of variation on there as well, because we know that in the beginning, this is before the sun, moon, and the stars were all created, God said, "Light be." He didn't say, "Let there be light." He said, "Light be," into existence. And with that, we understand that it wasn't really morning and night as we perceive it. There was the light of God and the darkness all around. It's kind of interesting to think about that when you're really kind of going into it all, and how can there be light without the sun? But the true light comes from the source, which is God Himself, the source of all light. And Charlene had given a message a while ago, and this specific part of it really stuck to me. She said that one of the ways we can understand it is it's not "let there be light," and like I said earlier, but "light be." But in Hebrew, we see it as the word "or." And so I like to say it as "or be." And there's that little brand of little Orbeez, that you can put in your plants here, of course, which is kind of something I kind of thought of, and doing the word "be," you can go into translations on that as well, but I like to just say the words "or be," light be. And so when I'm praying for places to have the light of God shine within it, I speak out the words "light be" into that place, or be into that place. But for the first lesson, we need to understand that God gives light to all. Just as Matthew 5, verse 45 says, "So that you may be children of your Father in heaven, He causes His sun to rise on the evil and good, and to send rain on the righteous and the unrighteous." God gives His light to everyone, and everything reflects or gives off that part of the light it does not need. Which is why green will reflect green, and yellow will reflect yellow, and red to red. Now, I know my wife is a teacher, but I was also anointed for teaching, and I'm going to give you a little science lesson, let's say, on or the worldly way of seeing light. We see light through the process that involves both our eyes and the way light interacts with objects around us. Now here's a simplified breakdown. Light emission or reflection. Light is either emitted from a source, like the sun or a bright light bulb, or from the original source, God, and reflected off an object. Light travels in waves and carries energy. Now we're going to go with how it affects into your eye. It enters the eye. When light reaches an object, it either reflects off that object or passes through it. The light that reflects off the object enters the eye, or the cornea, and the clear outer layer. After passing through the cornea, light enters the pupil, the dark circular part of the eye. The pupil adjusts to the size to control how much light comes in. The light is then focused by the lens onto the retina and at the back of the eye. The retina contains light-sensitive photoreceptors. We're going real sciencey here, eh? The rods and cones. Rods detect light intensity and are responsible for vision in low light, while cones are sensitive to different colors and work best in bright light. These cells convert light into electrical signals. The electrical signals generated by the retina are sent to the brain via the optic nerve. The brain processes these signals to form the image we see. Now that's just when light interacts with an object and enters our eye. It's processed by the retina and interpreted by the brain to form visual images. That's just light. But for color, we're going to go a little step into there as well, because I'll have more on that later on. Light consists of electromagnetic waves, and this is what we've discovered. Of course, this has always been there, just laws we're discovering of what God has already created. And these waves vary in wavelength. Visible light, which is a portion of the electromagnetic spectrum, we see spans in wavelengths from. Do you want me to go real sciencey or no? Yeah. These wavelengths span from approximately 380 nanometers, which is violet, to 700 nanometers, which is red. Each wavelength corresponds to a specific color in the visible spectrum. For example, shorter wavelengths appear as violet, and longer wavelengths appear as red. Objects, and of course there's also beyond that. We know that there's the mantis shrimp, or the manta ray shrimp? Mantis shrimp, yeah. Has the eyes that could see beyond the range that we could see, so they see more into the ultraviolet and past the red as well. Yeah, it's quite interesting actually. I found it really fascinating. Now, objects don't emit their own light, except in the cases of light sources like the sun or bulbs or God. Of course, when we have God in us, then that means the lights can sometimes be shown shining out of us as well. I gotta say that. They either reflect, transmit, or absorb different wavelengths. For instance, a red apple appears red because it reflects light with wavelengths around 620 to 750 nanometers and absorbs all the other wavelengths. A blue sky looks blue because it scatters shorter wavelengths, blue and violet, more effectively than long wavelengths, which is known as Rayleigh scattering. Of course, we're getting all technical here, of course, as well, eh? And how the eye detects it is the retina in our eye has two types of photoreceptors, like I said before, rods and cones. Cones are sensitive to light intensity, so the brightness, but they don't detect the color. Cones are responsible for color vision. There are three types of cones, each sensitive to a different range of wavelengths. S cones, sensitive to short wavelengths. M cones, sensitive to medium wavelengths. Short was like blue, medium is green, or round. Of course, it's not exact. There's like ranges within it. And L cones, sensitive to long wavelengths, red light. And varieties in there. When light hits these cones, they respond to specific wavelengths of light that correspond to their sensitivity. If light from a scene contains a mix of different wavelengths, like white light, each cone will respond more or less, and the brain interprets the signals as a combination of colors. We're getting real sciencey here, aren't we? Now I'm going to go bring up a color wheel here and tell me what you all know. I'm kidding, of course.
Spin the wheel.
The brain processes the different signals received from the three different types of cones, and the ratio responsible allows the brain to determine the color. If the S cones are strongly activated and the M cones are weakly activated, you'll perceive blue. But if the L cones are strongly activated and the M cones are moderately, you would perceive yellow. Now, I'm not really the best with the color wheel, so oftentimes I gotta talk to the teacher in the back there about which color mixes which color to get the right color I'm talking about. Like red and blue make purple, right? Now, but then what makes green again? You know, that's something we always have to deal with. But yeah, our brain it processes the intensity of ratio of signals from the cones to make the full spectrum of colors. Now I can just keep going, but I'll just say I hope you enjoyed this fun science lesson. But let's get back into what we need to get into. That's, I don't know how many years it's been for us going back into high school and elementary school going over that, but let's get back to the truth at hand. There are those that are in the darkness that are trying to keep themselves from the light, even though the light is always available for them. Like I said earlier, the light, or the sun shines on both the evil and the good alike, as well as the rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. It's always there for them. But there are many reasons why someone might want to remain in the darkness. They could feel shame, self-loathing, or self-doubt. These are all lies that Satan tells us is truth that keeps us in lockdown. I'm thinking about the movie The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Have you ever guys seen that movie at all? What's his name now? Quasimodo? Yeah, that's his name, eh?
Good old Quaz.
Yeah.
His whole life, he was told he was worthless because of his physical appearance. So he clung to the darkness. But we know that our worth cannot be found in our appearance. While working with lockdown, we need to examine ourselves in a few different ways, just to see how clear or free we are from lockdown. And these two ways that I have are, 1, how much light do we reflect back? And 2, what color is that light? The more light you have in you, the more you reflect back, and the more you are seen. However, the opposite is true as well. The more needy you are, the more you hoard the light in a darkened soul. It takes in the light and cannot give anything out. Taking what they can get, they seek to get and not to give. This is why some people are energy vampires. Think about how a black sweater absorbs the sunlight. Black sweater, like that wool sweater, doesn't really reflect light, it absorbs everything. It's kind of why it gets so warm as well when you're wearing a nice black sweater right in the sunlight as well. But I don't think energy vampires are very warm people, do you? But this is what people do. They don't want anything to do to bring light into the world. It is very much an attitude of me, me, me. What can you give me? An energy vampire is someone who drains the emotional, mental, or spiritual energy of others. These individuals often create an atmosphere of negativity, leaving those around them feeling exhausted and depleted. They are so negative and so dark, they drain all the life energy out of you. In contrast, we are called to be life givers, to refresh and encourage those around you, to be the kind of people who bring peace, joy, and renewal. Now, I have a couple points coming up ahead here. They're kind of written within everything, so I hope you guys can catch them as well. But there are certain things that can block you from reflecting light. Kind of like a blanket over a mirror. Doesn't really reflect anything, does it? Point 1. Not giving mercy. You have no mercy within your soul. So you keep draining the life energy from everyone around you instead of asking God for the grace of mercy. This may look like someone who always wants to gossip. No one can ever do anything right in their eyes. I personally know a few people like that, and we tend to see them in small increments for our own well-being. We are called to refresh others, not to deplete them. Proverbs 11, verse 25 says, "A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed." This wisdom offers us a clear guideline for our interactions with others. We are called to refresh others, not to drain them. There's a world of difference between the person who leaves others uplifted after a conversation and the person who leaves them feeling weary and burdened. God has made us to be generous, not with just our possessions, but also with our emotions, our energy, and our love. A generous heart encourages, listens, and supports. This is the kind of life we are called to live. One where we give of ourselves to others in a way that builds them up, not tears them down. This is giving mercy. Or showing mercy, depending on how you want to perceive it. Point 2. When you are not giving tithe, when there is no tithe, there are no needs met. You don't get into the blessing, and it doesn't activate in your life. You then have no new money of increase coming to you to meet your needs. And oftentimes, you're just scraping by, if you can, in the first place. And in this, you're also blocking God from getting your needs met, which then, it's kind of like a trickle-down effect here, is also blocking the favor of God to anyone around you. And you may ask why. Why does that happen? This is because you are so busy trying to take care of yourself, trying to take care of all your own needs, or are so occupied with what's going on in your life that looking to help others seems impossible. You don't get the provision of God because you neglected to get that blessing from giving the tithe. Bill Winston has a lot of good points on that if you ever check out some of the things he says about tithe. Point 3. When you are not giving in the dance of gratitude to God. Because if you don't give in the dance of gratitude to God, then He can't fill you with joy, nor can you be filled with rejoicing. Now, part of the word for dancing is hag or chag. It's a kind of a fun word here. And oftentimes it means to celebrate or a festival of celebration. But it also means the dance of gratitude. If you don't have gratitude for the things you've been given, you look for what is wrong or areas you've been offended at. And again, you become an energy vampire with that kind of attitude. And this oftentimes also brings in mulling. Why don't I have the best of the best? Why do they get that, but I don't? Mulling can be a large time waste if you don't ask Yeshua to break you out of it. In Proverbs 15 verse 13, it says, "A joyful heart makes a cheerful face, but when the heart is sad, the spirit is broken." Our attitudes are powerful. They shape the atmosphere wherever we go. If we allow ourselves to be consumed with negativity, bitterness, or frustration, these emotions can spill into our relationships, making others feel emotionally or spiritually drained. Think about the last time you encountered somebody who was constantly negative, complaining, or dragging others down. It's exhausting, isn't it? It's like trying to walk through life while carrying a heavy burden. Unfortunately, many people live life in this way. They don't realize the toll it takes on the people around them. But as believers, we are meant to be agents of joy and peace. In Philippians 4 verse 8, we are encouraged to think about things that are true, honorable, right, pure, lovely, and admirable. When we focus on the positive, on God's promises, and His goodness, we can shift our perspective and offer the light to those around us. when you are not in an attitude of gratitude, that new song that God gives you each morning is not in your heart. And if you don't have that song, there will be no praise, no worship, and no answers to prayer. Now here's point 4. When your light is low, there is no heartfelt song within you. Do you want me to say that one again at all, or?
Yes.
When your light is low, there is no heartfelt song within you. And this can bring you into lockdown. You can get into the attitude that Yeshua isn't answering your prayers, so he must be ignoring you. A little bit of smallness right there too, isn't it? But this is a very wrong mentality, and it will break you. We know that, I believe it's in Isaiah, he says that whenever you ask, this is also Matthew. I'm getting verses mixed up a little bit here. But the verse goes along with, whatever you ask and pray, believe you have received it, and it will be yours. Not it's gonna be, it's going to be, it may, no, it will be yours. When there is no heartfelt song, you are under the blankets of lockdown, and there is no escape. Because you are draining to everyone else to meet your needs instead of going to God. When Jeanette was born, we knew that we couldn't put blankets on her because there's a big risk of infants pulling blankets over their face and not knowing how to remove it. Without that heartfelt praise, you become that infant. You don't know what has covered you or why you can't get it off. You can't see the light or anything, and you begin to get upset. But I'm happy to report that Jeanette can now be trusted with blankets under supervision, and she has learned to pull things away from her face. Not everything, but she's getting there. She likes to also pull things more onto her face than off, though, sometimes. But no heartfelt song also means there are no miracles for your life. There'll be setbacks, there will be failures, but no miracles. And it's because light is not being released. It can't flow through you. Yeshua is our light source. We cannot make our own. Now, as much as we say, there's electricity going on around here and there's candles that are on. Well, no, not that. This is a different kind of light. We cannot make that light. We need to be acting in a way that calls for light. Yeshua would not provide you with light if he thinks you're just going to use it to blind people. He won't give you the power to deceive people either. He will also not provide that light if he knows you're going to lead people astray or bring yourself the glory. Yeshua does not say, let your light shine so others will praise you. He says, may your light shine so that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. The purpose of our shining light is always to direct attention to God, not ourselves. It's not about building our own reputation or gaining accolades. It's about reflecting God's glory so that others will recognize His goodness and turn toward Him. Our good deeds, acts of service, of love, and justice should always point to the one who is the source of all light. Just like I spoke in Genesis 3, or 1 verse 3. Or B. Not sunlight, God's light. It's a way of showing that the transformation we've experienced is not of our own making, but the result of God's work in us. We need to oftentimes ask ourselves, do my actions glorify God, or do they point to my own self-interest? When people see the way you live, are they drawn to God, Is your life a testimony to His grace, mercy, and love? When there is no heartfelt song, that light that should be there to show that, that light that should be there to show that there is no, I worded this a little wrong here. When there is no heartfelt song, there is no light within you. And that means that people can see that there is no real love for God or the brethren. That there is just selfishness, which is, again, part of that vampirism. And now, point 5. It's a bit of a longer point, so bear with me with writing this. I know it's hard to keep up sometimes. Where there is no truth or light of truth in you, there is no security, no faith, and no ability to cooperate as a unit or a team unit. Just let me know if you want me to say that one again. It follows up with the me. All the glory to me. When there is no truth, there is no hope. There's no stability, no sense of belonging. The lesson of light is that you have to agree to let the light in you and to be a beacon to those around you. Otherwise, you are locking yourself down. Matthew 5, verse 14 to 16. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a basket. Instead, they put it on a lampstand or on the table, so it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, may your light shine before men, so that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Jesus starts by reminding us that a town on a hill cannot be hidden. Kind of a fun thing to think about. A city placed on a hill stands out. It's visible to everyone around it. And just as a city on a hill cannot be hidden, neither can the light of a follower of Yeshua be hidden. Our lives, when lived in alignment with God's truth, shines brightly to others. And in that same way, the light doesn't serve its purpose if it's hidden. A lamp does not provide light when it's covered with a bowl. It has to be placed on a stand to light up the room. Yeshua calls us to shine brightly in the world and not to blend in or hide our light. When we live according to God's word, when we love as He loves, when we show kindness, compassion, and forgiveness, our lives shine, drawing people to God. Our good deeds become the means by which God's glory is revealed to those around us. God wants you to reflect His love, His light. If you don't, all you are doing is putting people into lockdown. Whether you realize it or not, that's what happens. And this will push people farther away from God. And when we are the ones who are pushing people from the Father, there's a number of things that can happen. I do believe a man named Paul may have a few things to say on that point. Of course, he had quite the change of heart and things that have affected him to come to God again. But what we reap, what we sow. If we sow discourse in the community of God, we will reap that discourse. If we cause disruption of unity, we allow tormentors to rule our life. We are pushed further and further from God. to walk blindly in the darkness, which is where the devil wants us. Now, I want what God wants in my life, and not that darkness. Not what the principalities or powers of darkness want, only what God wants. Now, this is not one of the sections of lockdown, but it is an additive note to lockdown. Something to help us understand it a little more in a lot of different areas. We need to see what we should be rather than what is affecting us. Shabbat Shalom.